And while I'm at it, I am allowing screen sharing. Okay, so welcome folks to the Open Humans community call on July 21st. And today is supposed to be a quantified flu focused community call. That said, based on who's here, we can choose to talk about other things if that seems to be where people want to go. And so to start with quantified flu, Abik is here and has recently joined Quantified Flu and is curious about sort of that join up process and if things are hooked up. So I guess I'll hand it over to you, Abik, to kind of list sort of the questions you have on whether things are working for you and what it was like.
Absolutely. So just went onto the page and realized that the Make Data Public button was grayed out, and realized that I didn't have the public data sharing feature available to me. So going through and I believe that there is a quiz to take, as well as, a few pages of disclaimers to go through. Does that affect, and of course, I'm sure that affects the ability of my data to be contributed to the data set, right?
These are actually separate, and it's interesting. So Open Humans has sort of a feature available to all activities on it that lets people make that data public in Open Humans. And what Quantified Flu is making public is separate to that feature in Open Humans. So you don't have to have gone through that process in Open Humans to be sharing in Quantified Flu. And if you did share it in Open Humans, it wouldn't be shared the same way in Quantified Flu. And it's a really interesting and tough question, I think, for me and Bastian to think around, is like how to manage that generic feature in Open Humans versus like the communications and context of like running the Quantified Flu thing.
The Quantified Flu more generally?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think like around how to solve that.
May just be very, just me being new and looking at like all the features and not knowing like, oh, if I just came and just did Quantified Flu, then I might not be familiar with, the common structure of all projects. And so I'm also not very good at reading instructions, so it might even have been in this top part.
But you shouldn't have to. I mean, this isn't just you. Gary had the same question. And Bastian, do you have any bright ideas? It's just I've still been struggling like how to navigate sort of a specific project saying, okay, we're creating pooled data that's shared, versus this feature in Open Humans, which is like, you can make this data set public and it'll be on your Open Humans profile, and like the user experience there is clearly leaving something to be desired. We can certainly make a note of it. Like this is confusing.
Yeah. Maybe when you go to the page as a member that's like logged in and has contributed, there can be basically little status badges that are very straightforward, like, oh, with this project you have you're already doing this and you're already doing this and you haven't done these things yet, and these are like all the possible ones and these are the ones that you have done, and that might make it at a glance a very easy way to just say very specifically what is and what isn't like being done with the project.
Yeah, I think that's a nice idea. I'm just looking at the activity page right now, which like we list the permissions that it requests the project, but you have no idea which of those you actually already have and which ones you don't. And I'm not sure that even during the authorization step, it clearly, no, I think there it says which ones you've connected and which ones you don't. But then once you've done it, you're kind of left alone. And it's like, wait, which ones did I already do and which ones didn't I?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at right now with poking through the different menus and thinking like, I didn't actually remember what data the quantified flu requested of me. And so definitely seeing that in the project information was something that took me a solid like 45 seconds to, be like, oh wait, what data was like, what other projects connected into this? And yeah, maybe again, like a very visible, oh, this is the project, this is the data, this is the current status, just like current status, maybe updates. And similarly, there's the Fitbit Interday and then the Fitbit connection. And do you know if the Fitbit connection, so I connected that, does it update or does it just have like when you connected it, it took the data, but then you'll have to do more?
So it gets the data every day or so, I think. I don't know the frequency, but it updates automatically in regular intervals to get the latest data as well. But that's clearly another thing which is not as clearly communicated as it should be.
No, that's good. I was just wondering because there's the data, but then in this interface itself, it's nice because it does say, the size of the file. So I can imagine like seeing that that has changed and seeing that more data has been added, but also some level of, oh, I'm sure that it's not technically trivial where it's like, okay, then you'd have to like actually parse it on some level and, be able to tell what kind of information is coming through. But does any of the Open Humans projects do that in this interface where it, parses the data that it's put in on some level and say, oh, we have this date through this date, or you have this many days of data?
No, because that's in the current technological setup impossible as we are agnostic to what's inside the file. And it would, as you say, it's not trivial to find out what's inside and which would be the correct parser. I think the easy fix here would be to say the last update, which we currently don't display. I think in the metadata, we already store when the last update was made for a given file. So just exposing this and you can see the last update was a day ago and not wondering like, has it ever been updated? If you can see it's like kind of current date, that would probably be an easy fix for us to implement.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be absolutely good. Because then, yeah, it does say joined over here, but yeah, a last update might be able to say, yeah, how much before the current date we got more data. That's perfect.
There are optional metadata fields for when data starts and ends that can be used in Open Humans. But again, it's like our project's using that. Is this activity using that? I don't know if they're being used consistently. I do think that we can pretty easily say this file was last updated on this date. And that should be very straightforward. And an activity doesn't have to do anything extra for us to have done that. So that sounds, we can check that, see if that's there.
Yeah, I have so many questions. Sorry for like dominating the
No, it's great. This is like, like these simple usability things always come out when someone uses something for the first time. Gosh, with the public data thing, it's so hard, but some of these are much easier answers, I think.
There was for the Fitbit intraday was something that I was like kind of confused about at a high level relative to the just general Fitbit connection. It seemed as though there was, more permissions and like just like more stuff around that. But I don't think that I have it connected properly because I don't have on the Fitbit connection, there's the info and the data tab is populated with that file. But on Fitbit intraday, I don't have a data tab populated. So it's just kind of grayed out. Is that normal? Is there a separate file that should be there?
There should be data. If it works, there should be like lots of files because it stores every month of you using Fitbit in a single file. So I have files like for, I think, let me look, May 2012 to now basically. So I don't know how many months this is in total, but so many files are there in my data tab. So
so every month it should add a new one and then
yeah.
that should be
And it
continual. I
gets
mean,
all
I
the
haven't
historic data as well, so it should have like lots of files if you've been using Fitbit for a while.
I haven't been using it for very long, actually, just the past couple months, but I think it potentially should have at least one because it has been more than a month, I believe. Yeah, quarantine
Yeah, I
time.
mean, like
It
you
doesn't
should
wait
have
to
at
the
least
end
have
of the
one file.
month.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it'll do
Uh-huh.
it right away. So it's not going to wait till the end of the month. If there's no files, yeah, that sounds like it's not working. I'm not
And
sure
that's all
what.
right. Do you know um, how to update, like how to like manage the settings? So saying like, oh, if it's not working, push this button to check what information you put in, and you can like modify that. There's like a message project, hide membership, and leave project, but I don't know if because with this one you have to like generate an API key, right? And like it had to
Yeah.
like connect back and forth.
I think
So
one has to go to the app itself.
yeah. So I put the link in the chat here, which should, once you log in into the Fitbit intraday page, should show you your client ID and client secret you've put in.
But I think this raises a general issue about people don't know where to find the project website, which is on that page, but it's called project website and it's kind of buried near the bottom. Adjusting configurations is probably gonna require going to that website.
That website? Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I clicked on that button literally as I asked that question. But yeah, some indication of like, oh, for general like project configuration and management, it's definitely handled by the separate project website. Let's see. Dashboard setup. Okay. Okay. I'll poke around. I'll read the instructions better.
Yeah, my first guess would be that maybe it's either you did accidentally not give any of the permissions, because I think it's opt-in. That's, I think, something we saw with Quantified Flow as well, that people just, they authorize their Fitbit, but they don't give any scope. So while we have an access token, we can't actually pull any data for them. Or the other thing that's, I think, a regular OAuth 2 issue is like giving the wrong callback URL, where there's like 1/ too many or too little. That's from my own experience. Like the typical thing that makes you go wrong and why nothing works is there's like a slash
syntax
that's
error somewhere.
trailing too many.
Yeah, keeping everything. There's a lot of moving parts. No, 100%. All right. Well, I think that gives me a start to handle all of the problems that I was facing. So I'm good. If anyone wants to talk about anything else.
So I'd like to welcome Vitali, is someone who's joined the conversation, and is also new, a new face. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Vitaly. I'm from Moscow and I'm an undergraduate student. My major is physics. I joined your Slack project recently, so I'm kind of new, and I just wanted to volunteer a bit in some COVID-19 projects, and I find your project. So yeah, I just wanted actually to know if you have something to get involved, to do something. I'm interested in data analysis too, so I have some skills also. Yeah, I just wanted to ask if something.
Thanks. It's great to have you here, and great to have you join. Gary, I see your hand is up using the Zoom feature, so I'm going to hand the mic to you.
Thank you. I've been doing so many Zooms, I now like to use the features. So Matt, you and I and Bastian were talking before this call about how to use this call and make it really, useful for everybody as well as for us. And as I was listening to a bit talk and the conversation going, it occurred to me, or it seemed to me obvious that we have a self-research call on Thursdays, which is really about people's personal questions. And then we have our OH community calls today, and this one's about quantified flu, but it's kind of the main call for addressing the Open Humans resource in general. And also it's a fairly technically competent group here. Certainly everybody is more technically competent than me. I think every single person. And so then I'm thinking, well, maybe this is the place to really outline how we're using Open Humans in general and quantified flu and what we would like to see developed in a kind of just ongoing and structured way. Because if it has value to us individually for the projects that we're trying to do. And maybe there's some things that we want the resource to be able to do that it isn't currently doing. Maybe some of those are practical, maybe they're impractical, you know, but I don't know if this is the right context to do that, but it occurs to me that might be a kind of a worthwhile go round, just as we did with listen to Vic a little bit, what he's thinking he's doing there and what's not working, that we just do that for our kind of our needs and goals for Open Humans.
Yeah, I think that's maybe separate to quantified flu as a project and its needs and goals. So I guess I'm hesitant to just step away from quantified flu as a topic, especially given that Vitaly's joined and is curious about it. So maybe let's do a go round of like what we like maybe we can do like a rose thorn bud type thing, like name something we like about quantified flu, name something that we wish we don't like, and something that is like a potential idea for growth. So I like that I have visualizations for like my symptom tracking, and I can see that with activity data overlaid. Something that I miss is or don't like is that I don't really have a good idea of what other people are experiencing or doing. It's really cumbersome to try to browse or understand what is being shared. And so, yeah, I think there might be some potential in sort of being able to have a little more high level information about what others are doing. I'd love to see like a exploration of like, here's some really interesting case studies or stories of what people have shared. And I will pass the ball kind of explicitly to maybe to you, Gary. This is quantified flu specific, if you've got it.
Sure. Well, I guess what I'm realizing even from my last comment is that my mental model of quantified flu is sort of merged with my mental model of Open Humans. So, you know, I think that's okay, probably, but my rose for sure is the feeling that my wearables data is being kind of stored in a data store that something good might happen with it. So I haven't really done anything with it, but I like the feeling that it's not just dependent on me using the Fitbit app or running through a workflow of my own to kind of download it into my own data store. So that actually I find very valuable, and I've been realizing how valuable I find it because I've been having battery problems on my Fitbit. And so it's been messing with my data set, which I'm currently not really doing anything with, but that's really bothering me enough. I'm going to take some time and like get with Fitbit support and maybe even get a new Fitbit, right? So that just shows it has a lot of value to me just as this potential resource. I think that my thorn is that what I would like to be able to do is see my self-tracking data, including my Fitbit data, my symptoms reports too, but they're kind of uninteresting because I haven't been having any symptoms, kind of against other sorts of backgrounds, like the way in which Bastian created an overland workflow, and then I did that. So now I have my location data also being safely tucked away. So I think I would like to be able to do more with visualizations and to see what other people are doing easily. And I realize even as I just said that, it blends quantified flu with Open Humans. So. And I'll pass the ball.
But appropriately, I think that's great.
Yeah, I'll pass the ball to to Dave. You're muted, Dave, I think.
There I go. So I've been taking vitamin D and zinc for many, many years now, and I'm pretty certain that it has helped me avoid all of the flus for the many years. My primary interest in Open Humans is that I have atrial fibrillation, and I've been fully sequenced. I have high homocysteine, which I think probably helps me against the flu, but hurts me because it gave me sciatica and perhaps contributed to my heart problems. So I'm interested in this project because it's motivating me to try to do more. As I said, I'm on George Church's Open Humans project, and I've analyzed many of my genes, and I'm trying to find out what genes can contribute to various problems and what genes can contribute to avoiding certain problems. And as I said, I think homocysteine protects me against many bacterial diseases because homocysteine is an inflammatory and eats away at the fatty surfaces of microbes. But there are many other things that can cause problems in your immune system. So if you have an overactive immune system, you can actually become, have a cytokine storm, and that will cause a lot of problems which are being triggered by the COVID-19 flu, as can be seen by people who have become, they have trouble breathing, they have congestion in their lungs, they get overly inflamed in many areas, which is a common problem for many diseases, but particularly for COVID-19. So I think it's primarily your immune system is overreacting. And that's another cause for needing vitamin D3, because D3 helps direct the immune system to not overreact. And of course, we're all inside these days. We don't get enough sun. We're not outside enough. And I think that's contributing to the prevalence of flu in general. Is that enough? Any questions?
Would you like to pass the ball?
Sure. Let's see. Abek?
And as a brief reminder, we're going to try to say, like, what do you like? What do you dislike or wish were better?
Yeah, so roses and thorns wise, it's definitely tough on the roses side because it's one of those things where these things like weren't possible before. So they're like so great that like it's hard to describe, where even though I mentioned, my problems connecting data, the fact that it's honestly still really easy. The fact that I don't actually need to update it, the fact that it automatically gets it from VitBit's API, the fact that all of these things are already built in a way where other people can, leverage this. I think that maybe thorns wise, I also find it very satisfying to, see how the data is being used and how it's useful, and being able to see, oh, maybe almost either a newsletter or on the current project page saying like, oh, these institutions are trying to use this data, and anytime that they, make an insight or like any event happens, being informed of that as a contributor would be very satisfying. And I think that, potential improvements on that quantified flu project might be, and I know it's a very like rapidly developing and fluid space, the collaborations and the insights gained, but often not knowing exactly either the current state of the project or the current state of utility of the project, because I'm sure that like many people are excitedly looking at it, and I just don't know. So maybe if there's like a newsletter, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just asked to get sent an email, but yes, that might be nice. And then I will pass it to Morgan.
Yeah, hi. Well, I mean, certainly what I love is having a managed Jupyter Hub instance, or Jupyter Hub, and not having to try and try and manage something myself on AWS.
Hey,
Which
Morgan, if you're not doing quantified flu, you're welcome to skip too. I didn't
oh,
mean to
okay.
make
Well,
everyone feel like they're pressured to be a member of the like
no,
project.
sure. I mean, you know, and just then let me just steal your point, which is that it's great what you are able to do, but it's too bad that I can't see more of what other people are doing with it. And you know, at the same time, I technically understand, and the privacy reasons I understand. Yeah, that would be my one point. And I will pass it to Paula.
All right, so I'll be honest, I didn't sign up yet for Quantified Flu, but I'll go through. I'm more curious about kind of the general application of having a group of people contributing, where you could potentially open up your own data in a project space. So you have like a goal in mind for tracking, and that goal is driving people to contribute and share information. So I'm sort of curious, I'd have to poke around a little bit more about other types of projects, how easy it is to sort of fork that type of idea, where you have a different type of question and you're hoping that other people will be motivated to share their data to answer a question. So I plan to go through and hook up my data, and I'll give more feedback kind of like ABAC has done, so that I can kind of, I remember setting up a Juno notebook, and there were a couple of small hiccups that I encountered, but they were small hurdles. I had motivation to go through them. And I'm, for someone who's new, and if the goal is to get as many people as possible contributing, then reducing those hiccups, if they don't have that intrinsic motivation, would be helpful to get more people on, so that I sort of see that the bigger it grows, the more sort of interesting data points and analysis you can do. So there might be people who are intrinsically motivated, and there might be those who are less so, so any hurdle will prevent them from kind of hopping on the train. So I will go through and give more detailed feedback next time. And I'll pass the ball. I'm not sure if Vitali has taken a look at Quantified Flu, but I think he's the only one who hasn't spoken. So Vitali, if you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm kind of new, and actually just I actually wanted somebody to make short introduction about what is the current progress of the project, and how it's managed. And yeah, if somebody can just explain a bit about the project, it would be nice.
Okay. I think that was great. Actually, did Bastian, did you go? Did you have a?
No, I
don't
didn't
think
go
you
yet.
went.
But do you want to go first about what quantified flu actually is, and then I can say
Right,
what my opinions are?
Oh, sorry, Bastian.
sounds-
I totally skipped you.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, so since there are people here who haven't like joined or aren't doing it themselves, but they've kind of heard it bouncing around, as Paula noted, there's this capacity of Open Humans to generally function as a place where people can create an activity that other people are sharing data with. So it's an aggregator for a project. So, and Quantified Flu is an example of this. The goal of Quantified Flu was to see what we can learn by connecting wearables data, looking at wearables data with respect to getting sick. So there's some belief and evidence that wearable data might help anticipate or understand like whether you have COVID-19 versus something else. And we're really interested in providing that insight on the individual scales. So especially thanks to Bastian and Basile, who's been working with Bastian, there's some great visualizations now. So Quantified Flu provides a daily check-in ability via email prompt to record your symptoms. And of course, most days for most people are no symptoms, not sick. but we realized that this was really critical because the first thing we implemented was a retrospective data analysis. So you remember, if you can remember what day you got sick, you can go back through your past data and look at what it used to look like. Unfortunately, we're just like really, our memories are not that good. So that's why it's nice to be tracking our symptoms on a more daily basis. So the symptom tracking is interesting, and I haven't heard anyone say like the symptoms list is terrible or frustrating or I want something else. Symptom tracking has general utility though, outside of like getting sick. Like there's chronic disease symptoms too to think about. So the symptom tracking experience and the visualization lines these up so you can kind of see I got sick and this is what my heart rate was doing, resting heart rate was doing on that day. As for sort of aggregate data analysis, I think Bastian had some students look into it a little bit, and we'd love, I would love to see someone actually pull out individual stories of like, here's an interesting like person who did get sick and this is what their data looks like and this is what they remembered and this is their symptom reports. That's like a single person deep dive analysis or narrative construction, but there's also the potential for sort of aggregate data. And I will hand it now to Bastian, who's going to wrap up with sort of roses and thorns that he's observed on the project. But I really appreciate stuff like wanting newsletters and some of that's like we need news to make newsletters and like what is the news? Okay, to you, Bastian.
Yeah, no, I think what you said in the very beginning, like the really nice thing is to be able to easily explore this data for yourself at least. It's like just fun to like scroll through the timeline and maybe even see potentially interesting signals where I did not report any symptoms, which makes me then feel much more inclined to think that all of my retrospective events just by chance lined up so nicely for the ones that I remembered. Because I like just scrolling through my timeline, it's like, oh, this is another one where if I would have fallen sick, this would look perfect, but I did not. So maybe the ones where I do feel sick and there was such a pattern is just by chance. And at the same time, this is like maybe where like not even on the inter-individual thing, but just being able to annotate like when my physiological data is acting weird, because we have comments for reporting symptoms, but no comments for if there's weird physiological signals. And one example is, so last weekend, we had like the end of the academic year celebration at my institute. I came home late, and of course there was like, being in France, there was like a glass of wine or two. Consequently, like my resting heart rate did not go down at all. It's like 20 points higher than any other night. And now it looks like I have like this very elevated peak of like resting heart rate and even body temperature, because if you don't get rest, and it looks very interesting, but being able to leave a comment and say like, well, actually, you know what, I went out to a party, I didn't get a lot of sleep, that's why. Like, I could do it by reporting a symptom on the day, but it would be weird, especially as you can't like edit these reports right now, at least retrospectively. So this is like an interesting thing which we might want to think about, where people annotate like as they do for symptoms, they report like, I started coughing a lot, but actually I just started smoking more because I'm unemployed. I would like to be able to say, you know what, like these physiological symptoms might not be super accurate on this specific day.
Bastian, is there a reason why annotation couldn't just be treated as a symptom? Basically, like on the symptom list, there could be an additional response that's I guess all the symptoms are numerical. Is that why?
No, but I mean, there is fields for comments that people can already write, but you report the symptom on a given day in which you usually don't have yet seen your physiological data for that given day. I think that's the difference. So you basically need to go back in time. So if like the next day I look at it, I notice like, oh yeah, these look weird, but I know what happened yesterday because my memory is luckily good enough to go back in time that far.
So this connects then with the editing of past data.
I guess, yeah.
So this is kind of like adding reflections after you can see the data that's been collected.
Which I assume like many other people might have as well. It's not just me, but if you actually look at the data regularly, and as it's right now, Like once you report your no symptom call every day, you are taken to the visualization of your physiological data right away, and you can see immediately what yesterday's data was, which makes you likely to notice if there's something weird.
I think it's not just specific to like COVID-19. And so in case you're wondering whether this project is useful, there are so many chronic disease patients who are facing challenges with trying to do stuff like this. So if somebody does want to engage in symptom tracking with respect to quantified flu, where suddenly it becomes relevant to all of us to kind of track our symptoms, what is learned here isn't just specific to COVID-19. Symptom tracking in general and our capacity to use it to understand our physiological signals and the causes is broadly relevant.
For sure, and I would just say like this touches on such an important affordance that is totally missing from the ecosystem of self-research, which is if you annotate your data based on what you think might have been going on, what you're actually doing is creating a representation of your own learning process, right? Because those annotations might change, like you might remember something different, and that process, so that suggests a separate layer in a sense on top of the visualization layer, and which in itself is really useful for generating your talks in the end, because then you can ask a question like, well, what did I think at the beginning, right? Oh, well, let's see the notes that I put at the beginning and how did what I learned change over time? And if you think about what we've been seeing in the self-research conversations, it's actually quite taxing to do that as you prepare your presentation, right? Like you're going to your slide and you're trying to figure out how to add the notes, and then you're kind of, maybe you have versions on your slide, maybe you don't, right? And so it is really, I mean, it's interesting that one little use that you describe of like figuring out something funny that was going on that day connects to like this whole layer, kind of missing layer of being able to understand your own data.
I would like to share, in case there are people who do want to play with the data, that the data there is data available. Within quantified flu, people can choose to share their unidentified ongoing symptom tracking jointly with the wearable data. And if you go to the About page, there's both links to ways to get that data, and then at the bottom of the About page, I even tried to create some one-liner like bash script so that you can download a bunch of data at once. I'm not sure if that works, but there is CSV versions available. And so if anybody's interested in looking at the data that, like, what subset was it? About half, Bastian, that are sharing?
Yeah.
If anybody wants to do something with that, that would probably, of course, we would love to turn around and like share interesting insights or stories with everyone else who's engaged with doing quantified flu project stuff. So, and that can become a newsletter or whatever. I just want to make sure that people can see how or where to get the data.
Could you share your screen? I know that, at least for me starting out, and I think Paula said that they were also not fully on yet, and so maybe walking through and like looking at the interfaces might be helpful.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through that, not knowing the walkthrough, and take notes.
Okay.
I want to kind of go through and document like, okay, this is what I was expecting. This is what actually happened. So maybe I'll jot down some notes, and that might be helpful. I had a side comment, Matt.
So
about...
I'm not doing a walkthrough in the project, but here's the public data page, and there's if people can see, there's like these little scripts to try to get stuff. Everything's on JSON endpoints. Okay, I just.
Matt, to your point about sharing and aggregating and like kind of summarizing this data, there are lots of data science programs that reach out to like companies or look on public data sets that try to implement projects. I think this is a beautiful use case for that. Insights is a program where you have like previous PhD and master students go for free, and they do a 3-month, and they always reach out and try to do a project. This is pretty close to, I think, closer to real world or like actual product business, because it's not clean data. Like there's a little bit of missing points. You don't know the context of which it was collected. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And so I think that, I don't know, maybe reaching out to these type of boot camps or programs would actually be like, they would be very interested, I would imagine. So
that's a great idea. So far, I think we've had some people come in off of Joggle or some other Slack that was like visualization centric. But I think beyond Vitali, not a lot of people joined. So maybe we need to approach that more sort of finding a better coordination.
Also, I think maybe it helps if we have a clearer idea of what kind of analysis we would like to see, instead of just like being very open and say you can do whatever you want with the data, but if there's not a like an idea of what people could be doing, it's very hard maybe for people to come up with ideas.
I would like to see individual stories, like some interesting individual stories, like kind of laid out with insights and.
I mean, maybe that's already the first thing that one can do, right? It's just like, at least right now, I have no idea how many of those people that are in Quantified Flu have fallen sick since using it.
Right. I mean, like, I'm sure we can find out. We just have to sit down.
And towards what Matt was saying earlier, I think that, yeah, potentially also having more data fields so that, you know, maybe it isn't COVID-19 specifically, but having this data set and this sort of structure being useful for almost like a template for other kinds of research projects in a similar way, but also be maybe collect more superset data with this round, since it's like a first go, I believe, with, you know, maybe a broader set of general symptoms that may not be as widely accepted as specifically COVID precursors or COVID symptoms. Might be cool.
Add to that point, if there is an ability to do a tag, for example, like I exhibit multiple migraines, so I'm curious about how other people deal with migraines. So like to create subgroups within the bigger category. So like all of this could be very easily, like I plan to add in additional information regarding that because I tend to care more about that. But someone else might benefit from the fact that I'm also falling sick. But I'm personally driven by the curiosity of migraines. So like I would be interested in exploring other people's data who are tracking that, or be motivated to add my own if I knew other people were tracking the same thing.
That's a cool idea. So I was kind of trying to work on adding the ability to customize symptoms, and there was some back and forth on exactly how that should be designed. And I think we came up with a pretty solid idea of how we would do that. And it's just a matter, it's a matter of me continuing and finishing that work on the back end to do this. It's definitely a roadmap thing that I'd like this to support. And but I think Paula's addition of like, once you have custom symptoms, now you, or like specific symptoms that you're doing, you can start looking at what other people are doing, tracking if they're tracking that specific symptom, if that's something they're concerned about too.
So many features. Thank you for everything.
No, I think it's great because this conversation has recognized that quantified flu is sort of an instantiation of symptom tracking within a broader context of symptom tracking. Well, we're 5 minutes to the end of the hour. I've taken copious notes and I'll have to, well, we will all have to sort through and figure out exactly which things to prioritize, but it's really great to have feedback. Yeah, so I'm going to do a closing round of if you like what value you see in quantified flu, whether or not you're doing it, like. And I am going to pass the ball to someone who's hasn't done it yet. So Paula.
I sort of see a parallel between quantified flu and I have this kind of interest in tracking how people learn. So I see that if there's this environment created for quantified flu and you have these symptoms, you can maybe do that instead of symptoms, you could do like skills you're trying to learn. So that parallel makes me super excited. And I think that the notebooks and Juno are like this exciting opportunity to kind of start on a smaller level at an individual and then transport it to make something like quantified flu. At least that's why I'm seeing it so far. Okay.
And oh yeah, pass the ball.
Pass the ball to Bastian. This time, I didn't forget.
Easy to get out of the way with that. No, so for me, I think that the big value really is like how easy it makes symptom tracking, that you can do it from whatever device and in a way that you just get like an email once a day, which I think I have forgotten it exactly once since doing it in the last 100 whatever days. And I think that's much better adherence than I ever had in any other tool. And of course, there's like a conflict of interest that I'm much more motivated for doing it for a tool that I'm somehow co-creating. But nevertheless, I think like the innovation of just doing it like with like 2 links in the email, that it's really easy to report your no symptoms, is something that I haven't seen anyone else do that nicely so far. I think that's like the biggest issue of adherence otherwise, because then like I think we've seen other applications for symptom trackings where like you need to remember that you even have installed the app and find it on your phone, which is a guarantee for people not doing it if they're not really, really highly motivated.
Can I add something? There's a couple of features that in this meeting and previous meetings that are like the visualization, the aggregation. Bastian, you just mentioned the emails. I'm not a part of it, so I think I remember the mention of emails, but I'm not using it, so I'm not really fully aware of all of that. I think those are all really great selling points. That's not something you discover until you fully commit. I wonder if there's a way to sort of like, I don't know, have a blog post that says all of these great things that this provides you with. Like you can enter your own unique symptoms, you get this visualization, you get this reminder. That's something that you only realize once you go through the entire process. But like that, to me, I was like, oh yeah, sign me up. That sounds easy enough. And I get all these benefits. Just a thought.
I'm taking notes right now before I forget.
I'm turning on my camera to nod.
Okay, let me pass it on to you then, Gary, as you're already there.
Yes, I think I said what I felt the main value was for me so far was this promise of being able to use my data in relation to my symptoms. And so I really think the potential is an actual value, even though I haven't realized it yet. And I'll pass it on to Morgan.
I'm going to defer in the sense that I'm not active in this, but you have my full support.
And ball pass.
And I don't have everybody's view. So
Maybe Dave?
Sure, Dave, please.
Yeah, I'm interested in quantified flu because it makes people more conscious of their health. I'm one of those people who was disgustingly healthy throughout most of my career. Most years I never took a day off from work until 2015 when I came down with sciatica. And that made me much more conscious of my health. Since people are very conscious of their health during the COVID-19 pandemic, this might be a good opportunity to get people to be more interested in their health and more interested in forecasting their health. What I discovered in 2015 when I came down with sciatica, I did my 23andMe test and distributed the results over to a couple of sites to analyze my results and found out that I was high homocysteine. And that was actually what caused my sciatica. Now, my doctors never told me that. They did prescribe vitamin B12 because I tested low for B12. And in doing other research, I discovered other possible problems, namely being low in glutathione and low in taurine. So I take taurine as well. And this COVID-19 pandemic, I think, will make people more conscious of their health and in predicting how their bodies will respond to various challenges. The flu, obviously, I've had the flu. It's been very minor for me, especially since I take the D3 and zinc for many years. I think people should be more conscious of what they can do to have better diets, less processed carbohydrates, which also cause inflammation, and basically lower their inflammation in general if you are inclined, if your bodies are inclined to inflammation. So I think this survey can make people more conscious of their health. And that should be one of the questions in the survey, I think. How conscious are you of your health? How many health problems have you had in the past? Because I think a lot of people who are going to be participating are going to be people who have had health problems. And the sick people won't be participating because they're not conscious of the problem. So I guess that's my opinion. Any questions? I don't want to talk too much.
That's great. It's great to hear what the value people see in it. So some folks have left because we're past the end of the hour, but I want to give a chance to Avik and Vitali. Avik, I'll go ahead and pass the ball to you.
All right, yes, I'll be pretty quick, but I really, as far as the project goes itself, as someone who is about to become a poor grad student, I definitely see many poor grad students around the planet being asked to, really reinvent the wheel when it comes to kind of almost projects like this, where it's like, oh, we want to ask a very specific question. Can you spend 3 years of your life building something to ask this very specific question? And then, move the needle barely. Whereas this really being more of a more flexible framework, so that, basically poor grad students and researchers all around can actually, get a jump start on actually getting research out, getting data out, as well as a big part of the benefit might be is that, hey, let's say somebody wants to use this for their research project. If there's a connector that makes it very easy to open source that data, then that's like an entire another level of basically work that can be done using the data set. And then, maybe there's researchers at one university that did a study on this, collected this kind of data, and then another university collecting a different data set, aggregating these data sets, and then asking questions of, the superset could be very exciting, but definitely excited for, the potential for many years of life saved, basically. Many years of work life saved, as well as, of course, actual human health-wise life saved as well. But that's an exciting possibility, and I'll pass it to Vitali.
Yes, for me, I think it's very important to know if there is some correlations with getting sick and your and this variable data. And I think if we can predict this earlier, it can save from going to be sick very badly, for example. And I think it's important to track your data and kind of predict when you are getting sick.
I'm muted. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you
Oh.
all. Sorry. I think I'll wrap up the meeting. I will, as a reminder for anyone that's left here, we do have a show and tell replacing Thursday's self-research chat. And I will, I know at least one person here saw my draft talk last week. So I'll be talking. Gary, Stephen, and James Littlejohn will all be sharing self-research stuff. Hi, Dave, were you raising your hand? Or
I was just going to say I'm going to be joining also.
great.
And
And
my stuff.
and I know that there might be more people that want to do show and tells that were related to the self-research stuff that might be coming in some future meetups, but it'll be nice to have this as a memorial to Stephen Keating. We'll be sharing our sort of wrap-ups of self-research projects. So folks are welcome to join. That's same time on Thursday, but not in this channel. There's a form to get the Zoom link to avoid Zoom bombing through Gary's Quantified Self, and we're sharing it in the Slack and stuff. So I look forward to seeing folks there. Okay.
Awesome. See you guys in a bit.
Bye.
See you in a bit.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care.